finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, and no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
All right.
Hey, welcome back to the show this week. Am I blasting you off with my super loud voice?
No,
well,
you're just...
That's because Tim says I'm a quiet talker, so I thought I'd change things up before the end of the year. And with this COVID...
Stop yelling!
I must have, gotten a new lease on life. Maybe I'll be able to sing like my favorite Amy Lee, too. Who knows? Miracles
and maybe
will
you
never
won't.
happen. Before we dive into the show and what it's about, Tim's got a word from our sponsor.
Absolutely. Locum story. 1 job, 2 jobs, red blob, no job. Elective doc, emergency doc. Some in overstock, some in and out of shock. This doc is too abused. This doc is underused. This doc can't get sick. Say, let's try a brand new trick. For all the docs about to cry, there's an idea you can try. Look in a locum tenens assignment. A really great option, you might find it. Don't forget, locums pays much better, and you can find assignments in any kind of weather. With all this new info trapped in your thinker, go to financialresidency.com/locum story and use your mouse to tinker. It's sure you'll find unbiased answers you are after, so you can decide if locum tenens is your next chapter.
I think you messed up a line, but good job.
I don't think I messed up a line. If I messed up a line, there would have been, well, whatever. That's besides the point.
So, good job on that, because we've been reading that one for a while, especially me. And what kind of weather would you like to practice locums in?
Well, it depends on the time of year. I mean...
Alaska in the winter?
No. Park City in the winter would be all right, though.
There you go.
Maybe we can find a Park City urgent care job.
Well, we can't, because we don't have a license in Utah.
Well, it's not that hard to get a license in Utah. I'll just go, hey, I'm a member of a church, and I don't drink. Oh, I'm a member of a church, but I do drink. Oops, sorry. They won't let me. And you, no. So now we just pissed off every single Mormon that listens to us, all 3.
Well, so no loss there, I guess. This week we are trying a new thing. We had a live stream on Facebook, which that's, where we all started, Facebook Live. And we used a new method to record our audio, and we are repurposing. So,
which is kind of fun because you get to hear questions and answers. People obviously write in questions, and then we answer them in real time. And so it's a helpful way, I think, in the podcast as well to kind of get information out there that people are interested in.
And if I sound a little crazy, it's because I am, because I'm
riddled
still
with,
recovering from COVID.
Riddled with COVID.
And I volunteered to.
And not only that, it was interesting, and we'll do more of these if people like them, especially since there's the whole question and answer stuff and so forth. But the audio turned out amazing. Massive
if you want to see it in real time, check it out on Facebook.
Yeah,
or
you can.
It's on actually now our YouTube channel. Woohoo! But I prefer people just listen, so
right.
they don't have to look at me looking like a schmo.
Get it to 10 or 15,000 views so we can get banned, because we say stuff that would get us banned, but we don't really give a crap about that.
No, we're pretty raw, real, and here we go. All right, so for everything you wanted to know about Omicron and more or less, here we go.
Okay, so now we go into the post rule. Well, there was one thing I wanted to say about the Muller's Ratchet, which I thought of, and then I kind of forgot about it, and then it comes back, and it's this. It's that, if the virus mutates enough and ratchets down enough, then it actually becomes a massive advantage to have the variant around. People are like, well, how can it be? Well, because if it becomes super duper contagious and essentially not lethal at all, and you just get a cold, then everyone gets a cold and you get robust natural immunity.
So in other words, back to where we used to be with colds being pretty much, I wouldn't say super duper contagious, but fairly contagious.
Right, and schools are gonna blow up this year. There's no question, because we have this suppressed regular immunity that kids normally get by picking their nose and kissing each other and being 5 and 6 and 10-year-olds and whatnot, and that's all been suppressed because we had largely schools closed across the United States for 18 plus months. Now they're back in school, and then even with the masks, it's not going to matter, and even with the vaccines, it's not going to matter because they're not getting vaccinated for RSV and for regular viruses because there's no vaccines for that because they're colds. So there's going to be a lot of colds, and there's going to be a lot of childhood illness. And I think there's going to be a spike in RSV, which is really scary because that actually kills children. And, oh, yeah, there's no RSV vaccine. They tried that. Last real attempt was about 50 years ago, and it caused antibody-dependent enhancement.
It's funny how no one talks about that much other than you.
Well, and it's a freaking virus that actually kills kids.
I know. Crazy.
So we'll see what happens. But, on a happier note, maybe you hate your medical job and you need to go and check out Locum Story and, maybe you want to work just a few months a year in very exotic locations. You can do that. That's available. It's one of the advantages we have as physicians. For doctors, the story has changed. Visit financialresidency.com/locum story to see if a locum tenens assignment is right for you. It's here you'll find the unbiased answers you are after, so you can decide if locums tenens is your next chapter.
I'm thinking so.
What is your next chapter, May? You don't know yet.
No, I'm going to let the pen just start to write my next chapter.
You're going to write your next chapter? Barista? Well, I know if the job we're in right now doesn't work out and there's a couple other things we have in development, then there's always the fallback, which for me would be pole dancing.
And on that note, roll the credits.
So this episode is going to be called Omicron, Molly Hatchet, or Muller's Ratchet.
And what? COVIDiot?
Yes, and May does have COVID, so you'll be literally like an insider's view is what it's like to watch someone suffer with this virus.
I don't know what I was thinking when I volunteered for this or suggested it, but I think in my deliriousness, being a massive fan of the morning show, if you haven't all watched that, you should. It is super cool. But you have to get it on what show? What streaming? Is that Peacock?
No, it's Apple TV.
Apple TV. Okay, love the morning show. Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Steve Carell, and anyway, Jennifer Aniston's character in the last season. I don't think I'll ruin it. She's like
No, if you said that the Steve Carell character died, that would be ruining it.
Way to freaking go.
That would be an actual spoiler.
So
if you said that Jennifer Aniston got COVID, that's just what happened.
Anyway, she gets COVID and looks like she's dying, and then they decide that it would be a good idea for her to go on TV and tell everybody about it because it's right at the beginning of the outbreak. So I don't know. Maybe I was like, I'll just do my part for the media.
They were so pro-vaccine that they said, we know in a year from when this is set, there'll be a vaccine and you need to get it. And we know there's going to be endless boosters. No, they didn't say that, but they might as well.
Anyways, so I guess I'm trying to Alex Levy my way into your hearts today and share my experience. Nobody wants to hear about me being sick with COVID. I'm sure most everybody.
Yeah, because basically it's a bad cold.
No, unless
you get the really bad lung COVID.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just a bad cold.
I beg to differ. I don't really have a
cold.
cold.
I diff to beggar.
I don't have a cold, really. I have a bit of this dry cough, which I've had for the past week, which he said was allergies. And then I thought I had a polyp on my vocal cord because every time I laid down at night or talked a little bit, I would cough. So then, honestly, what happened? Sunday night, I went to stretch my neck out I have a thing called a Denerol. It's not a dinner roll. It's a really good cervical traction device. Check it out if you have cervical issues. And anyway, you can only lay on it for so many minutes, a limited time. I haven't been using it for a long time. And so my chiro was like, okay, start using this thing because I was having trouble with my neck. And so I put that thing out and I laid on it. I'm supposed to be doing a minute. I cheated. It might have been 2. And then we were watching TV and I'm sitting there going, whoa, I feel really dizzy, like not vertigo, but just lightheaded, spaced out, and nauseous. And I don't usually get nauseous. So then I'm like, maybe I compressed my vertebral artery, blah, blah. I feel crappy. I went to bed. And then on Monday, I was cleaning the house and I was like kind of achy and I was a hot mess. Like I'm like, I'm having hot flashes. I really shouldn't be because I'm on hormones. And you're like, you look like garbage, which was really nice of you to say to your wife.
Well, it's true.
So then
I'm a truth
like,
teller.
Yeah, I'll be fine. I pushed through, took my temperature. It might have been a little elevated, but it wasn't a fever. So then, well, let's forward.
Well, it was a fever for you because normally your temperature is like 78
I'm a
and
lizard.
it was
Because
85
I'm a lizard.
because you're ectothermic, whatever the.
So then Tuesday, I did go out and about because I'm like, I feel kind of weird. My eyes are burning, but I'm sure it's just RSV or something because we've been seeing tons of that. So I then started to crash and burn in the afternoon. And and Monday I did a COVID test, by the way. I did do a rapid COVID test Monday and it was negative because I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, but that was only about 1 day of symptoms. So
are we counting the dry cough for last week?
I don't know.
Right. Anyway,
Nobody knows.
The rapid test was negative. So Tuesday, I was just like, I don't know if I believe that. Let's see if I have RSV or maybe I have the flu. So precious husband got to do a PCR test on me, which, by the way, was like you were like gouging on my ear. It was really weird, even though it was my nose. But
well, I'm reserving comment on the depth of my COVID testing because it's amazing.
And when she said it was positive, I was like, yeah, because I'm getting sick really bad. So
and then
I've had
super bad muscle aches.
What I have is mostly the severe body aches, myalgia. And then when my temperature was going up, I wasn't sweaty. I get chills and I'm shut down. Like my hands are like ice cubes. My feet are like ice cubes. And I can't get warm. And my temperature got super, I don't know, it was like 101.7 at the highest. And body aches like so bad. And so I'm stuffing myself with drugs that I have access to.
Like heroin? Oh, you don't have access to it.
What
does it sound like? I'm stuffing myself with drugs that I have access to.
I don't have access to heroin.
You never know.
Ibuprofen. Okay, I'll come clean. Ibuprofen. I have some Tylenol 3 that I use for my migraines. There you go. Tylenol 3 and ibuprofen. And anyway, then I still couldn't sleep because I hurt so bad. I coughing. And I was basically.
And then what happened? And then what did we do that made you feel better?
Called for the troops to come in and give me monoclonal antibodies, which we are giving at our clinic, and got that like within 2 hours of being diagnosed, basically. So then my night was horrible and hellish, and I hurt really bad. I've had the flu this bad before a couple times, but for me, it's just the body aches, man, and then and I got up to pee 4 times in the middle of the night, which I don't know if those are very interesting. I don't think it's the muscle spasms, moving fluid around. Maybe it's the monoclonals. I haven't heard that from anybody else. Have you, like a diuretic effect?
No.
Anyways.
But nonetheless, you're feeling better.
So yes.
Regeneron seems to have done its job. By
yesterday morning, the fever broke. I don't have the rigors, but man, I still have fatigue like you wouldn't get like with anything else. That muscle spasms, it's really weird when I get them. It's not just muscle spasms. It feels like someone's got those little poppers, those when you get packages in the mail and they have those
bubbles wrap.
I can't think right now. The bubble wrap. When you pop the bubble wrap, it feels like those little bubble wrap things are popping in my body. Anyway, I'm just kind of out of it. So,
all right. So
hi.
Here's the deal. Everyone's freaking out. Well, not everyone, but some people are freaking out.
He's immune, he says, because he's had
already had the COVIDs.
Has had the COVIDs and the
No,
vaccine.
but I didn't just get the COVIDs. I got biker COVIDs. I mean, literally the spike proteins are like, they have little like leather spiked collars. They're so pissed off.
So coincidentally, the person that infected him had
a dry
similar
cough.
dry cough for a
Yes.
week. He's like, so and so, we'll call him like, I don't know, Billy Bob, had he'll love that. Has this lisinopril like cough.
And that's what it was.
Anyway,
so
enough about me. I'm sure you're all sick of it. I can tell you later all the stuff I'm taking and have been taking other than the monoclonals, but those have been the game changer, I really think. So knock on wood, I'm still here.
So why is the new variant called Omicron?
You told me because it's a Greek letter of the alphabet.
It's the 15th letter in the Greek alphabet. I think the 14th is XI or Z, and they didn't want to use that because that's the name of the president or premier of China.
Z. So if it's in Canada, is it called Z?
No, it would be XI.
Oh, it's XI. Yeah. Is it Chi? Is that different?
I don't know.
Anyway, maybe I forgot. So now I read, and then while the highlight of my day was taking a shower. I did a live stream post on Instagram to advertise this, and I
hallucinated.
Watched so many episodes of I Love It or Listed. But anyway, I was looking at what's going on in the world, and now there's 5 people apparently.
Yeah, now there's way more. They just sent I just got a push notification. There's a whole bunch.
Maybe I should be checked to see if this is Omicron.
Okay, so no, you shouldn't be. And the fact is if they say there's 5 confirmed people with whatever variant, there's probably 50,000.
Okay, so what do
you know how they type it? Do they know how they type it? So you get a positive test, and then they accrue positive tests, and then they do a sampling of just a few of the positive tests to try to see where it's going as far as mutation rate. So this idea that you're going to go in and get a test and they're going to tell you what variant it is, that's not how it works, because there's just a very tiny sample of the positive tests that determine what variant it is.
Right.
And because they want to know, is Delta going away? Is Omicron going up? How sick are people? Now, if you were admitted to a hospital or really ill, I'm sure that they would type it. It's very expensive to do the genetic typing of these things.
We do our own PCR tests in our facility.
Yes.
We can't type it.
Oh, no, of course not.
So,
no.
I'm just telling
It'd be like
the audience.
No, like to type that, because it isn't just that they're looking at the base pairs and the mutations in the RNA. Like they actually are looking at the physical structure when they figure this out. Like, I mean, I think eventually it just goes into RNA sequencing or whatever it is, but it's sequencing it. It's not just getting a sample of whatever RNA. So it's pretty complicated.
Good evening, Rick. Welcome to the show.
So why did I say Molly Hatchet or Muller's Ratchet? What is the best Molly Hatchet song ever?
Well, you're asking the wrong person.
Yeah, well, it's
because I must admit I probably know the songs if you told me, but have I a collection of Molly Hatchet from my youth days? No, I was more the ABBA, Rick Springfield.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
Asia Journey.
Yeah, well, that's better.
The bad side of me was into Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Billy Squires. There you go.
Let it all out.
Oh.
These are the things that we dream. Yeah, no, let's not do that.
Billy Squire sang a bad song.
No, I like Billy Squire. Yes, absolutely.
But we won't name it on the show.
So Molly Hatchet's greatest song, of course, is "Flirtin' with Disaster." So the question,
isn't that? Never
no,
mind.
that's Molly Hatchet.
I'm like delirious.
No, you are delirious.
Smoking in the boys' room.
No, that's Brownsville Station. You keep teeing him up, I'll keep hitting him out of the park. So at any rate, with this new variant, are we flirting with disaster? Well, actually, be flirtin with disaster, or is it Muller's Ratchet, which is a little bit different?
Oh, Heidi got it. Did Gord tell you? I want to know if Gord told her if she really knew it.
She'd know. I think she'd know.
Oh.
Yeah, she's probably far more culturally adept than you, but at any rate.
Oh, I know she's more culturally adept than
so let's do the converse. So what is Muller's Ratchet? Muller's Ratchet is actually an interesting concept. And what it says is, in evolutionary genetics, Muller's ratchet, named after Hermann Josef Muller, which would be like Hermann Josef Muller, by analogy with the ratchet effect, is a process through which absence of recombination, especially in asexual population, eventually accumulates irreversible deleterious mutations. So in other
you're
words,
going to need to define.
I'm going all the way through
asexual.
Asexual.
Yeah.
Yes. So asexual reproduction is not like one of the 59 or 159 genders. Asexual reproduction.
Not a monk from
nope.
the middle of
negative. So how single-celled organisms reproduce is asexually. In other words, they just divide. Okay. So the genetic material moves to the side and divides. Where this is really obvious is in viruses, because viruses are very simple. They are a chunk of RNA or a chunk of DNA. That's the genetic, information that allows the virus to produce itself, but it can't produce itself. And it has a protein coat simply over the genetic material. And then it has some sort of arms, like in coronavirus, it's the spike proteins to grab on and inject its genetic material into a living cell using the living cell's machinery to then replicate itself. Okay. So viruses don't go.
So it's an obligate reproducer.
Correct. So viruses don't go to the virus singles bar and try to hook up with other viruses. It's like, man, your spike proteins. Did you see the spike proteins on that one? I'm taking her back to my place.
They're not looking for their own kind.
I'm taking her back to my place. No. So what they do is they inject their genetic material. That's the infection of the living cell. They use the essentially factory of the living cell to reproduce a whole bunch more viruses, which then kills the cell and barfs out a whole bunch more viruses. So because there's no recombination, in other words, there's no boy virus and girl virus hooking up after a night of excessive viral drinking, there's just viruses injecting DNA and then spitting out more of the, exact same virus. That's the goal. What ends up happening is the viruses mutate. In other words, as the genetic material is being reproduced to make more viruses, there's errors. Okay. And these errors are called mutations. So because you're not taking genetic material from two different viruses and combining it every time to make it reproduce, it has a much higher chance of the errors reproducing themselves over and over and over again, right? Because you can't kind of make up for an error by, you don't get to, it's like in your family, like the one kid that's
like
really
the royal
weird.
family,
right, exactly. So it's like, what they did in the royal families is they actually started breeding from different countries,
right?
Because otherwise, if you thought, Prince Charles was ugly, wait until you see when they didn't bring any of the Germans and Spanish and Greeks into the royal family. It would have been even more blue-blooded nonsense of consanguinity. So
where did they get that term blue-blooded from?
I think it's probably because they're all hemophiliacs and dying because they multiplied all their genetic.
Yeah. If anybody on here knows, shoot us a little pop-up here in the messages.
So at any rate, just using common sense, right? Most genetic errors do not make the virus more survivable. They make it less likely to survive.
So wait a second here. Okay. So you're saying genetic errors, but what the media is pushing, right? Is the variants, the virus is mutating. So that's what they're saying, is mutating and it's becoming more virulent. Get the Delta. It's going to get worse. Oh, it's pushing the variants.
No.
It's like all the hype out there. It's freaking people out.
No, the only reason we'll get into this. The only reason it would get worse, and the only reason it would be preferentially getting worse. Now, it can randomly happen. In 1918, the second and third wave of the Spanish flu was worse.
Can we say Spanish flu?
We can say Spanish flu. The Español's flu.
I think they're offended.
Spanish flu. It's like Spanish rice. but you die.
You don't
So
really
similar, but different.
I don't really like Spanish.
So at any rate, the reason you have a potential selection pressure where the mutations are going to make the virus more potentially lethal is because you vaccinated every single frickin' person in the known world. Okay. I heard a stat where like way over like 99% of people over 65. Okay. So what it does is it actually, because you have a whole bunch of people that have partial protection, then more lethal forms of the virus that accidentally are produced can survive because they're not killing the host, because when you kill the host, the virus dies too. So that's a problem. What famously Geert Van den Bosch, a very prominent vaccinologist, said, with a highly mutating respiratory virus that spreads very quickly, you do not want to vaccinate during a pandemic, because the risk is that you're going to push all these other variants, and it's going to and your pandemic's going to last way longer and potentially be more dangerous. So at any rate, yeah, I like that. That's true. That's beautiful. COVID is old news. We're bringing back Ebola. That would be a great song. Bring back, like a boy band. That would be like a boy band thing. Bring back Ebola.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then
hey,
their arms
sorry
come
for
out.
my flashing through these things, but we're using StreamYard, and I'm new to all this, so that's why the comments are probably looking different.
Well, and you have a head full of COVIDs. Sorry.
At least it's full of something.
Right, but it is full of COVIDs. So at any rate, when you,
oh my gosh,
the chances of a virus mutating and then just becoming less virulent, in other words, less dangerous and potentially more contagious, is usually what happens. Okay. Why do they become more contagious? They become more contagious because the viruses that are easier to catch, the variants that are easier to catch, are going to spread more rapidly and reproduce quicker. Makes sense, right?
Right.
So if you have an elephant farm and a rabbit farm, and you just play Barry White to both farms,
all right, okay, that's just gone wrong.
And then you wait.
Are you saying the farms?
You wait for 5 months.
Yeah.
Are you going to have more rabbits or more elephants? Well, the answer is you're going to have more rabbits, because rabbits get it on a lot, and they have a very low, short gestation period, and they reproduce rapidly. Elephants, 10 months. So it takes a year basically to get an elephant after the Barry White and the.
Got it. I'm not tracking, because I was going to say, is this like the feather and the brick phenomenon from the sky?
No. So it's so then what ends up happening is, as they mutate, they tend to, you got this huge viral pressure. You got all these like the tons and tons of virus in the world. As it mutates, it tends to get more contagious and less lethal, because the lethal, and this is just a normal viral evolution, because the lethal strains kill the host, so they don't get to reproduce, because their little house that they were in, they burned down. And the other more contagious ones are spreading quicker and reproducing more. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's happening is Muller's ratchet, which is as they're reproducing more and more and more and faster, they're spitting out tons more mutations. And as they spit out tons more mutations, those mutations tend to make them survive less well.
Mm-hmm.
So the virus starts to burn itself out. Just evolutionary, it starts to go extinct. Okay. And so that's Muller's ratchet, is that it ratchets down in intensity as time goes by. Usually.
This is like such a, I don't know.
Usually. Okay.
If you buy into it's made in a lab virus,
it would still do that. Like the made in the lab, I don't think makes any difference. So the part of this that's really crazy is that, like, you don't hear this. Okay. Like there's two things you don't hear on the news, which drive me absolutely crazy. Number one is, Fauci should have come out and said, it's an emerging pandemic. We really don't know how this is going to end. Why do I do Trump's hands with Fauci.
I don't know, but I really like when we use the Snapchat filter to do his Fauci.
Yeah. So
videos,
at any rate, you should have, because you don't
authentic.
you don't know if one of these variants is going to be way more lethal. It could be. It's less likely it would, but it's absolutely possible. It could be more contagious and potentially more dangerous for certain people.
I know, but
there's no
like,
question. But you never hear, I don't know. It's like, no, we don't think it does jack for Omicron, but the only answer is to get vaccinated. Well, how does that make sense? The vaccine doesn't appear to work. Moderna and Pfizer both came out and said, we don't think the vaccine works for this variant. And the only solution is to get more boosters. Like, how does that make sense? Like, that's completely.
But you can't get a booster for it because you haven't developed it yet.
No, you're getting a booster for a virus that's been extinct for like a year. Like that's the part that's just crazy. By the time
they figure it out, we'll be on to Z.
Omega. That's the end of the alphabet. Omega. And then it'll be Alpha 2. Beta 2. All the way through the Greek alphabet again.
Maybe we'll switch to girls' names or boys' names.
Like hurricanes.
Just like hurricanes.
Yeah,
maybe couldn't use car names.
So the question is, A, are we flirting with disaster, or B, is it Muller's Ratchet? And I would contend, and again, I don't know. We're not practicing medicine on Facebook. This is for entertainment and enlightenment purposes only. It's both. Because I think Gert Vandenbosch is correct. I think that mass vaccination of people that have very little risk of getting the virus, or getting really ill from the virus rather, pushes the variants and potentially pushes the variants in a direction you don't want to go. So that's the flirting with disaster side. Now we're going to pour more boosters on it. When patients come to me and they say, should I get boosted? And I say, you mean like boosted by whom? Oh, you mean the vaccine. When that happens, I usually say, I don't know what to tell you because it really hasn't been studied and there isn't data. That's the most honest answer. There really isn't data. Would I add more antibodies of an extinct virus when I think that antibody-dependent enhancement is an almost given with these vaccines? The answer is no. Do I tell unvaccinated people to get vaccinated? Yes, all the time. Because there's two issues with the vaccine, and two things, believe it or not, can be true at the same time. The vaccine can be the best thing for you because of your demographics, your medical problems, et cetera, because it still appears to decrease severity of illness and hospitalization risk. Okay. And at the same time, it can be the worst thing for your population. All right. So when you're looking at population dynamics and the virus going through the population, mass vaccination, especially of younger people that have very low risk of severe illness, can actually be bad, makes it worse because it pushes the variants and it causes the pandemic itself to last longer because you have all these partially vaccinated people.
I think everybody understands what it means by pushing the variants by now, right?
Right.
I think they know that it means that it makes them want to mutate.
But here's the thing, because we see this all the time in popular, on wherever, like Facebook, Instagram. Okay, people try to compare this to smallpox and polio. Well, it isn't anything like that at all. Smallpox and polio are entirely different viruses. They're very stable. They hardly ever mutate. And if they do, it doesn't make a significant difference in the illness that it causes. And those vaccines for polio and for smallpox and for a whole bunch of other diseases are sterilizing.
Yes.
So what does a sterilizing vaccine mean? Sterilizing vaccine means you take the vaccine, and if you develop an appropriate immune response, you're not going to spread it. You're not going to get a little bit sick with smallpox, not die from smallpox, and still transmit smallpox. It sterilizes.
Yeah, like one and done.
Okay, so you're done. Like, not only are you not going to get smallpox, you're not going to get a mild case of it and spread it.
And gee, look how long they last, those vaccines.
Well, yeah, because it's durable.
Some of them are lifelong.
Yeah. So when you look at the COVID vaccines, and they knew this right out of the bat because there's been tons of COVID vaccines that have been given for, in veterinary medicine, and they don't work very well. And we knew that. So we kind of knew going into this, and it was in the Pfizer and Moderna studies, if you read them, was that that the likelihood of stopping transmission was very, very low, but they were for decreasing risk of hospitalization and death. which is fine. So if you're somebody who, like the worst case scenario people, right? Like if you're 95 years old and in a nursing home, I mean, it's still sad if you get COVID and die, but I mean, honestly, your life expectancy in that period of time is, I mean, it may only be months regardless if there was a pandemic, right? So it really is kind of a different scenario. But if you're some of these people, like the 65-year-old guy that has diabetes and has had 2 stents and is actually living a normal life now, but is still at significant risk from illness from COVID, that's somebody where the vaccine could potentially absolutely change the course of their life and save their life.
Well,
right?
we've been saying that.
But
forever.
for a child, like a 5-year-old that has essentially 0 risk of death and super low risk of serious illness,
well,
then why would you only give them the risk of the vaccine?
Fancy,
right?
you should say that, because look what Caitlin asked. She had, is there any reason a child should be getting the vaccine? Because she's homeschooling her 8 and 10-year-olds. She doesn't want to be forced to do it.
Yeah,
and
so
you are not alone.
Yeah. So what okay. Is there any reason? That's the question. Is there any reason? Sure, there's a reason. Okay. If you had
there's a lot. I mean,
right. If you had, and we, like when I interviewed Paul Alexander back in September, and he talked about how this one scientist went through every single case of fatal COVID in a child, and every single one had a serious
single one.
Right. So they had a very serious concomitant illnesses like leukemia. So yes, if I had a child that had, say, cystic fibrosis, terrible lung disease, would I potentially vaccinate that child? Absolutely, because it's all risk benefit. It's risk benefit. Is the risk of the vaccine worse than the disease itself, or is the disease itself worse? Like, so that's
I'm going to be the devil's advocate because I'm really good at it. But a lot of the pro arguments to get the vaccine to all children is because there's also, it's just not death as a risk, but also the implications of getting COVID and getting potential complications and long COVID or cardiomyopathy from the virus.
But that's
I know, but I'm just saying because
but I think
they're gonna ask.
Right, but I think that that's an idiotic argument. And the reason I think it's an idiotic argument is there's no data to say that the vaccine is better. So
there isn't. And that's just the thing. If you ask any expert or any doctor about what are the long-term studies on giving this to kids,
the answer is we don't know.
Answer.
We don't know. So could you get Miss C, that, childhood immune response thing that is quite, it's treatable. It can be dangerous, but it's a real thing. And it's, it'd be bad if your kid got it. Can you get that from COVID? Absolutely. Can you get it from the vaccine? Probably. But, so myocarditis, can you get it from the vaccine?
Well, there's
absolutely.
Lots of data on
can
that
you
now.
get myocarditis from COVID? Sure. But here's the thing, right? Here's what you have to think about. So if you listen to what Dr. Alexander says about this, kids have more innate immunity. In other words, they have this like preloaded immunity to be able to fight this for whatever reason. Plus, they seem to have mucosal immunity, like in their nose. And so that's why they tend to not get as sick with it, and they tend to not transmit it very well. All right. So if kids are basically snorting the COVIDs, and they also lack the ACE2 receptors to get an infection through their nose into their body. Okay. Plus, they have better innate immunity in their nose. Then the only place they're bumping into COVID in the world, in like the wilds, is in their nose, and then they're rejecting it. Okay. So they're never getting spike. We know the spike protein is an evil jerk, right? So they're never getting spike protein in their blood. So if they're never getting spike protein in their blood, and they're just getting intranasal COVID, which they clear and never get a true infection, okay? So if you did a PCR on those kids, they'd be positive, but they would never be sick because it never got into their bloodstream. So if that's the case, then, and if that theory is correct, then why would you ever vaccinate them? Because to vaccinate them, you have to inject the spike protein into every single child. So in that scenario, the risk itself is much higher, because the risk of a kid getting a ton of spike protein in their blood from a native COVID infection is less so than an elderly adult. So it completely tips the scales of the risk benefit ratio. Okay.
Right.
And so,
they're saying that, of course, their pediatricians are pushing hard. in the healthcare system. Excuse me. And I know that they are. I know that OBGYNs are pushing pregnant women to get it while they're
Oh, I
pregnant.
thought you were going to say, when you said pushing pregnant women, I thought you were going to say like down the stairs.
No.
That'd be bad.
I can think at least somewhat today.
So how do you challenge this, right? Because, if you're not a doctor, well, the answer is show me the data.
That's what you
show
say.
me the study.
That's what you
show
say.
me the study that the vaccine's safer. I mean, the FDA itself came out and says, we think that the cost benefit ratio may be better for vaccination than not. They never said this is obviously better for kids to be vaccinated than not. They never said that. They had that one guy, Dr. Rubin, who said, well, we're never really going to know how safe it is until we start giving it to kids.
The other thing,
I'm like, okay, thank you, Nancy Pelosi. We've got to pass the bill to see what's in it. I know. Let's start with your kids first. Let's do that.
Yeah, it never works that way, right? It's always like everybody else's first. The other thing, that drives me nuts is because they're like, well, we got to get to herd immunity by having the most of the population.
No.
And so,
well, you're never going to get.
You don't need kids.
No,
you don't need the kids to be vaccinated to reach that, because what is it? We've already at what's percentage without vaccinating kids? What's the percentage of
the state of Oregon right now is over 70%. So we should be when you add you add COVID recovered and COVID recovered children, you're way past where you ever should need to be for herd immunity. So it's clear the vaccines are absolutely failing when it comes to transmission. You're never going to get to herd immunity with the vaccine. If you keep chasing it and you keep bringing out newer and different variants of the vaccine to battle the new variants, you may end up with something which is similar to Marek's disease in chickens, which is absolutely the worst possible outcome you could possibly ever have with the vaccine.
Didn't we talk about that before?
We might have.
Was that on the podcast, or was that on here?
I don't know. It was like, I don't know.
Well, I know
I've talked about this crap so much.
We can't remember where we've talked about it because we talk about it so much. The thing though that's nuts is the way they present it in the media. It's like frightening. It's like, I can't even remember what the exact wording. I'm sure I could just look at it right now. But the way they Omicron is, and they're like, second somebody else is detected with it, and it's like coming and be prepared and preparing.
Well, you know what it is,
and it's like,
yeah, I heard this, and literally, this is what it reminded me of. It is a mid 60s to early 70s Japanese monster movie. Like literally, like you're standing in Tokyo, like next to Tokyo Bay, and it's just like, what is the giant monster? What is the name of giant monster? That is Omicron. Omicron. Oh, ah, ooh, ah. I mean, it's like, I mean, that's literally what it is, and it's like, oh,
oh my God.
And you sit there and you go, okay, like scientifically, it might be worse. I'm not going to come out here and say I know. I mean, I'm not Fauci. Just keep doing what I say, and we don't know. We don't know. But if you look at evolutionary science, it's probably going to be as contagious as Delta, maybe more contagious, and probably less lethal. Okay, so what's the solution?
I don't know. Then I don't know.
Take your zinc. Take your vitamin,
there's gonna be another one.
Like all of that. Well, but that's the point. And that's that's the disconnect, is how much of it's science and how much of it is just, using this pseudoscience to push a political agenda of control and whatever. And I think by this point, with this many variants, and like, look at what two states in the country, there's two states that have exactly the same number of COVID cases per 100,000 in the United States.
Oh, I happen to know. You know how?
Because I told her.
Because he told me.
So, and it's fascinating. Okay.
There's any guesses? Any guesses?
Anyone? Bueller.
Are you gonna give him a prize?
Bueller.
So what are they?
Hawaii, which makes sense. Hawaii is the furthest away island from any inhabited island from any mainland land source in the entire world. So it's isolated. It's easier to isolate it and keep people away. It's relatively sparsely populated. And Florida.
Yay, Florida.
Why Florida? Well, because Florida never locked down.
Because they both have the most sun and beaches.
Right. No, because Florida did three things. They never locked down. They vaccinated people very early and very aggressively, which clearly has made some difference. And they had basically 7-Eleven based monoclonal antibodies. I mean, not quite. I mean, that's a little bit of exaggeration, but not much. So they treated people really aggressively when they had their big surge in the summer. Because when is their surge going to be? Their surge is going to be in the summer when everyone is inside because it's 90 degrees outside with 90% humidity. Okay. And they treated people very aggressively with monoclonal antibodies. And now it's perfect weather in Florida. So people are outside. So there's a little less transmission. And they have done what is the most important thing in a highly mutating respiratory virus is they let natural herd immunity occur. That's the case. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen in Australia with their COVID concentration camps.
Can we talk about that?
Like, they literally have COVID concentration camps.
I couldn't believe it when we were watching the news.
Like, it's
people
insane.
Are like literally having to escape and run away in the middle of the night, and then they have these police like out there arresting people and on a manhunt because people are being locked down. And these teenagers that escaped were not even sick. They weren't even COVID positive. You know what I mean? They didn't even test positive.
No,
they'd been exposed to somebody.
Look, like it's you can't make this up. Like, you can't make this up. Like, they literally have detention camps in Australia, COVID detention camps. And this was people that had they weren't even sick. They weren't even you.
No.
And it's like, we see what the illness is like for you. It's no fun. But I mean, is it enough of an illness where you'd want to lock people down? I mean, like, at all, let alone like, I mean, it's completely insane.
Totally. And I bet you they wouldn't have Canada Dry there for me to consume. Wouldn't get my Canada Dry.
I'm sure they do.
Right. Anyway,
so
and then Germany.
Austria or Germany. Germany has.
Are they? But they're not the first ones.
They're basically the mandatory vaccination for absolutely every single person. If you don't have a vaccine, you can only go to the store and you're sitting at home by yourself.
It's a full-on lockdown for you. Can you imagine?
No, I mean, for what? Like,
for how long?
But how do you?
How long?
I mean, I have absolutely no idea how long this video is going to stay up. But whatever. If I get tons of views and gets hold of it, for sure it'll be taken down. But whatever. But at the same time, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, how in the world? How in the world can you mandate a vaccination that does not stop transmission? Like, if I want to be like, let's say the vaccine, let's say this is Ebola, bring back Ebola better.
Yeah.
Like, let's say it is. And I'm like, I have such an unbelievable, sensitive body that I can't take any vaccinations because of whatever disease I have, or I have such an unbelievably strong religious conviction or whatever, whether you think it's smart, dumb, or it doesn't matter. Right. And you know that if you get Ebola, you get a 75% chance of dying. And we have a vaccine that's actually better than these vaccines, and it absolutely sterilizes your chances of ever getting Ebola. And you still decline it. Like, that's on you.
Exactly.
That's on you. Like, so you got Ebola and died. Like, okay, well, you're a knucklehead.
Honestly, I wish we could make Ebola great again, because it would just take our mind off of this BS.
Like it really is crazy. And so you have a non-sterilizing vaccine. And oh yes. The other thing is that I want to throw out.
I'm just flashing back to when Ebola was around and what we had to go through at work. Remember?
Oh no, it was.
I felt like I was suiting up for the Mars mission.
No, it was completely nuts. It was completely nuts. But you see, the other thing is, here's another little tidbit. Okay, when people talk about how, well, you don't believe in vaccines, what about polio? Okay, well, the polio vaccine took 4 or 5 years from its development to when it was widely released and essentially ended the polio epidemic. Okay, but what they don't tell you is when they started to release it, they had to pull it off the market.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were giving people polio because they didn't have the dosages correct on the risk of getting vaccine-associated polio versus getting vaccine-associated immunity and not getting polio at all. And so they were like, oh, crap, we're giving all these kids the vaccine and they're getting polio from the vaccine. They had to pull the vaccine. They had to do some modifications before it could go back out. So this idea that somehow just because somebody says it's a vaccine and you got to follow the science, that somehow magically it's the same as it's the same as treatments and vaccinations that we've had for decades is completely irresponsible.
I just read a post someone, a well-known physician, posted on another colleague's page about, but look at the great success of exactly polio and smallpox vaccines and where we're at and yada yada yada. But they probably don't even know that what it did.
Well, then do some reading.
Yeah,
do some reading. They're completely different viruses. Smallpox is super complicated. It's like 10 or 20 times more base pairs, I think, than COVID. It's ridiculous. And the thing is, medicine is not practiced by one size fits all. Like, do you want to have, people are like, you don't believe in chemotherapy. And I'm like, well, I believe in chemotherapy, but I'd kind of like to have cancer. And not only that, I'd kind of like to have the right chemotherapy for the cancer that I have, rather than just take chemotherapy because chemotherapy is great. No, it's great for a very certain subset of people. It's like,
well, and it's not, let's rephrase that. I don't think chemotherapy is great.
No, I mean, but it's necessary for certain.
Right. It's necessary.
Okay. Let's talk about something great. Sex. People go, it's like, okay, the vaccine is like sex. And you go, well, you like sex. You believe in sex. Yes, but not with children or not non-consensually. Okay. Yes. One is an absolutely heinous crime. The other is the most intimate experience human beings can experience together. I get it.
Oh, you're going to get lambasted all over like the World Wide Web comparing the vaccine to that.
Then lambasted. No, that's what I'm saying. The vaccine can be the greatest thing in the world for a certain subset of people, and it can be the worst thing in the world for two things can be true at the same time. What
drives me nuts is the one size
like
fits
sex
all.
Can be a crime in one scenario, and the way the species survives in the other.
Yeah.
Right? Hello, knock, 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 McFly. That's the way it works.
So, were you going to talk about the
bustiers,
the boosters, and the new
ivermectin, Pfizer-mectin.
But first, But first, a couple questions.
I kind of went on. I talked a little bit about the boosters, and I think we've kind of done that.
Okay. How about this one? Oh, that's I like it. I like the laughing because it makes us all okay. I can't see here. How long does the smell of chemicals last in my nose? I'm assuming you had COVID.
Nobody. The problem with that is nobody knows. There's people that got COVID back in early 2020 and still don't have taste and smell back. Sorry to break the news to you.
But it's not a unique phenomenon to COVID, and that's what people don't realize. You can have any virus, pretty much, right? I would say not as bad, but
Well, it makes you wonder, like people that had like what we called idiopathic anosmia, where they just wake up one day and couldn't smell.
Yes. So there are certain viruses that are worse than others.
Right. Were those,
especially taste.
Anosmia. It sounds like you burned all your Donny Osmond records. Anosmia.
But some people, it's like short term, couple weeks, and some people, you're right. It's like a long time.
Some people, we don't know how long it lasts.
The longest I've heard is like almost up to a year. I don't know about permanent, but unfortunately, I haven't lost my taste or my sense of smell. And I could probably use a little help because I can smell everything, which is not always pleasant. That's all I have to say. But things don't taste good. This is about all that's tasting good right now. Believe it or not, it's my cocktail choice. Even my favorite tea is not tasting good. And then, I don't know. It's just, yuck. So here you go. Someone had a year and a half where they had no taste and smell. Yep. That's what Sean says. And
So this is like tapping in since we're
and
taking...
Gord still has no. Oh gosh, so that's been almost a year too.
Oh no, it's been over a year.
Was it?
Yeah,
I thought it was right before Christmas, right?
No, it was. It was like summertime.
You got sick in the summertime,
or before that.
Hey,
Might have even been April or May.
You just did a HIPAA violation.
Well, it's not. He's in Canada. There's no HIPAA,
and he's not your patient.
He's not.
There you go. He's a lawyer, though. He'll probably be suing you.
Well, like I got the COVID, and then like the government said that I got to stay in my house because I got COVID, and it sucked. Just couldn't taste the beer. Elsinore beer I couldn't taste because.
So there you go.
Taste the smell sucked.
Wow. See, exactly a year. Who's right?
His wife is right. So, anyways, we're going to try to repurpose this into a podcast so that you can, relive it whilst you're driving. But it'll be interesting, because, we get questions and then we have to, answer the questions. I like that, though. I like the interactive aspects of the live stream.
I do, too.
And I'm a big fan of this StreamYard platform. Big fan.
StreamYard,
greatest platform ever.
But
excellent platform. Love the platform.
Here's what's even better than when, other than doing things like this and popping up the comments, is that we can actually advertise and have your ticker tape like going across the bottom here if you would like to sponsor the show.
Exactly.
So dropping a big hint on there. So that's a commercial
break.
But
it's great to be able to pop up the
comments.
The comments.
Yes.
And then we can edit them too if somebody's like,
well, we could edit
we hate you and we wish you die.
We could edit them on Facebook too.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess if you're on Facebook, you can read them as well.
There was one podcast. I don't know if y'all caught it.
Caught it? My brain's full of COVID.
Caught it. But we had a non-fan that was on there posting.
It's one of our only non-fans.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think you've really made it in any kind of media unless you have people that really hate you.
It's a disgruntled customer from 20 years ago, and we removed his comments.
It's amazing.
So, what were we going back to?
Pfizer-Mectin.
Pfizer-Mectin. Let's touch on that.
So Merck brought out a drug which is called Molnupiravir or whatever it was. Moneypravar is what we called it in our group because it's just about money. And
it's probably going to be as great or less effective than Tamiflu.
It's crappy. So its last batch of data said it's only about 30% effective.
Wow, that sounds really awesome.
Not good. Now Merck or Pfizer, with their antiviral medication, they said that initially, if you take it within the first 2 days, it's like 79% effective. So who knows what effective means? Like, is effective you never get sick? Is effective mean that it has
stay out of the hospital?
You stay out of the hospital. Like, there's lots of different effectives, right? And say, so
exactly. What does effective mean?
What does effective mean? And it's the same with monoclonal antibodies. Like, so far, it's about 70% effective in decreasing hospitalization and death, but it also decreases symptoms by 4 days. Now, with Omicron, when that comes in, will monoclonals work the same? Probably not. I mean, intuitively, you would think that they wouldn't work as well because they were developed for, a different virus, but it's probably going to do something. And so the Merck one, it barely squeaked through continued research with the FDA. Both of these drugs, both the Merck drug and the Pfizer these are antiviral drugs. They're not monoclonal. They're not monoclonal antibodies. They're not antibody treatment. They are like antibiotics for viruses. They are old drugs that were repurposed and modified chemically to work against COVID. So, hey, if I have no skin in the game as far as big pharma. Like, are they bad? Yeah, sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they're really bad, right? Like when Bayer was part of the consortium that made Zyklon B, which was the gassing agent in the death camps in Nazi Germany. That's pretty bad for a pharmacy company to do that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're good. I mean, you're taking an agent that has completely changed your life with regards to migraine. So, big pharma is what it is, and they do some good things and they do some bad things. Pfizer's been in a ton of trouble in the past with sketchy marketing where they had to pay big fines and whatever, but it doesn't mean that they're all evil. And I think part of the problem with the divisiveness and the political discourse and all that kind of stuff in this is that like everything's either all good or all bad. And that's a really kind of simplistic and immature way to look at the world, right? Like you can believe the vaccine's really good for somebody, but it should never have been released en masse, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, birth control pills can be spectacularly great. If you're a woman, you probably shouldn't put them in the water though, like chlorine. I mean, right? I mean, so two things can be true at the same time. And it really kind of like this binary thinking. Like literally people come up to me and they'll go, well, I've listened to your podcast and then you said I should get the vaccine. Like, and I'm like, well, yeah. Because, because two things can be true at the same time. Right.
Risk factors.
Like I can wake up in the morning and you can really not want to be married to me because I'm a jerk. And by the evening, it's like, I'm the greatest person in the world. I bet you that happened a couple times in the last 30 years.
That's not even a close analogy.
Okay. I like the sex analogy.
Yeah.
It can be a crime. I got to think of something that rhymes with crime. It can be fine or a crime. It can be fine
or only worth a dime.
I'm fine or a crime. Yeah. So
dime is popping into my head.
Wow. Yeah.
Worth a dime.
Yeah. There you go. So if there's more questions, we'll answer them. Otherwise, I think there is some advantage in keeping this under an hour, isn't there?
Yeah, like I get to go home and watch more Love It and List It.
Love It or List It.
On continuous reruns. Best show ever. Although, there's a few others.
No.
Drink some ginger ale.
The car building shows. When Dave Kindig last week built the completely ground up redesigned, he built the entire car himself. Like he didn't take a car and rebuild it and modify it. Like he built the entire body out of carbon fiber.
So when you were sick,
that was.
What did you watch? Because I didn't witness it because I was gone.
I watch documentaries on the internet. That's on Prime and Netflix.
Documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was your favorite food to eat when you were sick? Anything?
Vodka.
Food. You're funny. What are you, Mickey Rourke?
Sometimes it becomes a food. No, I mean, it was just dull the pain and make it stop. So, yeah.
Someone wants to know if COVID symptoms could be, I'm terrible at this. Could COVID symptoms be body aches, headache, and fatigue, but no fever? It depends on your immune system, but yeah, a lot of people don't mount big fevers.
No, it could be almost anything. And it could be almost anything. Like the person...
And I guess so here's the thing is people define fever in a funny way. Fever medically is 100.5 or higher temperature. Fever doesn't mean you're sweating. People come in and they're all hot and I'm like, I'm having a fever. So if you know what, honestly, if I hadn't taken my temperature, I wouldn't have known that it was like that high because I didn't feel hot and sweaty at that point. I was just shivering.
Normally when you
I was like, whoa.
Normally when you have a fever, you're really, really cold. You can't get warm. I remember I've had influenza twice in my life. I absolutely know I had. And I can tell you exactly where I was both times when I got a fever.
So
because it was like getting struck by lightning. I was kind of a little bit sick. And then literally I was driving both times, literally within 3 miles. It was like, okay, now I want to kill myself.
And so COVID we had that one guy come in. He had profuse vomiting. He filled the room. It was really disgusting. And the sink in the room. He's had some diarrhea. Apparently he didn't have a fever. And then he had severe abdominal pain. So we sent him to the ER because we were worried about a gastric outlet obstruction. He had COVID. Some people just have really bad head cold symptoms. So all that to say,
you don't have to have a fever.
You don't have to have a fever.
You don't have to have.
You can take that off.
You don't have to have the fever.
Exactly. So you can read that one.
Even higher risk first responders shouldn't get the booster if they are typically healthy people, aka no risk factors. Well, I'm not going to give direct medical advice, but I guess
Yeah.
I'm not giving direct medical advice. I'm giving generic
Okay.
medical advice.
Well, we
Would
are.
I get a-
we are high risk.
I mean,
we work in a COVID clinic.
Yeah, I mean, we're one of the only places around that'll actually see sick COVID patients and
Where do
treat
you think
them.
I got this from?
So, I would.
Are you going to get the booster?
Me? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I'm COVID recovered. I had the vaccine, which may have made a difference. I don't know. I took some of your rheumatism medicine that we had laying around, and I checked.
We may have access to some. We won't say it on here. That medicine.
And so, I would not. Would I take a booster as a low risk, healthy, fit person? No, I wouldn't. I mean, regardless of what job I did.
Well,
like if I never got COVID, I had the vaccine way back in January. I wouldn't take it. It's not studied. Muller's Ratchet suggests to us that as the variants come out, more people are going to get this.
They say that it would protect you a little bit more than just the vaccine alone, but a little bit more, meaning how much?
Yeah, but it's a little bit.
And then there's more variants, and
there's no long-term data, and we don't know.
And when does it end? When does it end?
Right, and we don't know if it causes ADE, and we don't know if these vaccines actually cause immuno dysregulation. If you look at the old studies, and we'll end with this, if you look at the old studies of the original SARS vaccines, when they gave it to monkeys, okay, so they're like, this is awesome. They give them, like, they took deactivated SARS, right, coronavirus, like a flu shot, and they injected the monkeys, and they're like, this is fan-stinking-tastic, okay? So the monkeys had a big immune response. They're like, this is great. We're never going to have a SARS pandemic ever again. And then monkeys would get a novel, like a cold, and die.
And that is the worst nightmare scenario.
Right, because now all of a sudden you have all these immunized people, and whoopsie, we didn't realize that 2 or 3 years after the vaccine, it modulates your immune system, and now you can't fight off para-influenza, parvovirus, like pick your gazillion respiratory viruses. I mean, I'm not suggesting that that's what's going on or what will happen, but that happened before.
Yeah.
And they're like, monkeys get the sniffles, and now Bubbles, the chimp, is dead.
Poor Bubbles. And then there's the chicken phenomenon.
Merrick's disease in chickens. That's for a different day if people want to know about it. But if you look that up, you won't sleep. I mean, they literally started vaccinating chickens for this in, I can't remember if it was the 70s or in the 50s, but they've had 3 major vaccine changes over about 30 years. And now no chicken transmits Merrick's disease because the vaccines push the variants of the virus so far to lethality.
They can't live without
that
it.
Any chicken that gets infected with Merrick's disease that is unvaccinated dies.
That's
so they literally, if there's Merrick's in the area and you have little chicks, the second their immune system is developed enough that they can get a vaccine, you have to vaccinate 100% of them, or they'll all be dead. Isn't that great?
Wow, that's a real positive note to end on.
Yeah, isn't that positive?
Yeah.
Merrick's disease in chickens, Muller. But we can go home, and whilst we're driving around, we can listen to Molly Hatchet and realize, even in the mid-70s, life kind of sucked because you were flirting with disaster.
What a way to end the show.
What a way.
Anyway, thanks for hanging with us, listening to me cough, entertaining him and laughing at his jokes. We got a couple good podcasts the last few weeks if you want to check them out. And this one's today is
doctors' unions.
Yeah, really
things that
really actually really long, but also really insightful about physician. It's doctors, but also it's not just docs, it's dentists that are represented to unions and why it would be beneficial or not beneficial, and how they work and how it could actually mostly benefit the patient's experience in healthcare, really, than to get physicians more money and get them a lunch break and all those things that might be a little
the theme
important
is
at some
union is a way you can take your profession back.
Yeah.
It's not the way, it is one of the ways. And I think that Joe Crane that we interviewed did an outstanding job describing that.
Yeah.
But that is his job, and he's obviously very good at his job. And then, like, you got to go back another episode and listen to the interview we did with Steve Torrance.
Oh, yeah. If you're
was
like, I loved it. And I know I really don't like Top Fuel dragster stuff much at all.
Yeah, that is an absolute mind blower. Like, what an amazing, amazing man. What a great story.
He was so kind to, like,
and
come on.
And
these
he
two
literally
he
had won his 4th Top Fuel World Championship. And 3 days later, he's on our podcast. Because you know what? That's what world champions do. They come on our podcast. That is a really cool interview.
And so do people who want to advertise.
Yes. So.
And I'm getting a little tired of reading 1 fish, 2 fish. So please, on the show, if you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I think I'm all timed out. I think my couch is calling, and so is Hillary and David.
Yeah, well, I'm watching football, so get used to it. All right. Till next time, we shall see you all later.
Bye.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know. Bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com. Yeah, so, like, would it actually be...
You caught me off guard.
Me dancing
on barista, and I'm like, I'm so brain dead with this COVID, I couldn't even think
Would
of
that
an
be
answer.
me dancing on a pole or with a pole?
Or
because male pole dancing would
just
slightly be
dancing
different.
naked with your pole.
No. No dicks on the sticks. The sticks are for chicks.
That's the best quote.
Isn't
ever.
that great?
That's
the bouncer. I think he was. Like his head was like.
No dicks on the sticks.
I gotta get.
The sticks of a chick.
I gotta get the quote right. To kick this little a-hole off.
Maybe he should read the locum story
of the pole thing.
Baby. I was going to say maybe
it was a country bar. So since when do country bars have frickin' like poles?
I guess if it's in the fire station.
I don't know. It seemed like they were melding genres together that did not need to be melded.
That's weird. All right, Nathan. Thanks.